So now you know what should be a healthy landing, and you know how to spot it when you have a look at your horse moving. So now the big question is, how do we get there? And there are two pillars that we talk about, and there's a lot of fighting about, okay, which ones we put first, and diet, exercise, diet. If you were to put diet first, I would not blame you, but I tend to put movement first, because I've seen some horses that were maybe not on the perfect diet, but because they were moving so much, they were actually maintaining healthy feet. So I put movement first. I want to tell you about a miracle, and that's when a baby is born. He comes out of his mother's belly, and his feet are like jelly. It's covered with a substance called equinehealth, and it doesn't last long on the foot, but if you touch it's really like jelly, so it's soft feet. For a very, very good reason. It's so his feet don't puncture the mother's uterus as it's coming into the world. Nature is beautifully designed, that's what I believe. Now, within 2 hours, that little thing is going to be up on his legs, getting access to his mother's milk. Imagine it takes us a year. 2 hours, right there. Within 24 hours, he's going to be galloping. A miracle. Literally a miracle. Now, what this means is that horses in the wild, or in general, let's say in open spaces, large group of horses in open spaces, they move from day one to the last day. When they stop moving, they're dead. That sounds tough, but it's not. The adults in the herd don't slow down for babies. And that's not because they're merciless or whatever. It's because the babies can cope with that speed right from the first day. So these hoofs are meant to be stimulated. They're meant to be hammered by the ground from day one to the last day, way more than we can imagine. I believe we can only underestimate how much stimulation, how much beating up on varied surfaces these hooves get in the wild. Now, horses are born genetically the same, no matter if it's in the wild or in the domestic world. This is footage from Australia, a range of 75 hectares with roughly 50 horses on it. And what was really amazing to witness there was how much these horses actually move in their daily life. When you see a big group on open spaces, it gives you a pretty good idea of how much they're capable of and how much they should move. And that includes when they are in an area that is big enough, that's very important, varied surfaces, so different surfaces, and that includes then hard surfaces. That's super important. Imagine that in the domestic world, especially in a country like Denmark, might be a little bit different in Canada, the States, or Australia, but especially in Europe, first thing you think of when you're like, okay, I'm going to get a horse, I'm going to buy a horse, I love horses, I'm going to have horses. The second thing you think of is a fence. Anyone that has had his horses going through the fence, it's panic because it's going to be a matter of minutes before they end up on the neighbor's vegetable garden or creating a traffic accident. It's going to be a disaster. So that means, for reasons that we can very well understand, it means that as soon as we bring a horse into the domestic world, most of the time we think, okay, we're going to put him on a field safely behind a fence. So the first thing we do when we start thinking horses is actually limiting their movement. And very often that's the way we do it in Europe for actually, like again, like reasons that I'm not gonna criticize, but we put them on a pasture most of the time. So that means that they have access only to soft surfaces. Okay? So that makes a huge difference when we talk about domestic horses and wild horses. They need a whole social life, and they need a reason and curiosity and interest to go from different places. Imagine yourself being fencing your own garden. It can be a big garden. Once you know the places and there's nothing happening, you're not going to go in circles unless you work out like we do. You need a reason to go somewhere. So large group of horses on open spaces provide many reasons for horses to move for water, move for a batch of sand when they're going to roll themselves, for food. They're going to be, we're going to talk about that in the next chapter, they're going to be grazing around 12 hours a day. And then they're going to have the whole social life where they fight, they have sex, they play. That's part of a healthy social life. So all that to just remind us how much horses are supposed to move. And that's going to be part of maintaining, obviously, a healthy food. I'm just going to go through a few pictures where you see horses in open spaces. Suddenly you're like, oh my god, that horse is right here now. He could be in 2 minutes on the other side of the mountain right there. They can move extremely fast and they are meant to move. I love to see horses moving. That's what they're supposed to, and that's what they've been chosen by humans for that partnership that has been lasting for like thousands of years now. It's because they're so fast and so beautiful. So horses that move, and especially if they move on varied surfaces, you're going to be able to, we started to do that, to start to identify their feet. Here, this is a horse that moves a lot, even if we're in the domestic world. There's been a little bit of a fresh trim on his nail there, but basically, a horse that moves a lot is going to maintain a short nail. More about that later. And then he's going to develop a back of the foot that is strong, wide, and his frog is going to look like something like this. That's another example. That's before the trim. I hadn't seen that guy in quite a while. We've got still a pretty massive frog. Once we're going to cut the nail nice and short, well, we're going to have a frog that takes quite a lot of space. There's a little bit of damage there. That's nothing. The foot is globally healthy. There's no black spot. There's no rotten stuff. So horses that move will develop healthy feet. Guess where I found the healthiest hoofs? In places where you have youngers, teenagers that just take their horses for a blast like 6 days a week. And then I pick up the feet and I'm like, oh my god, nothing to be done, or so little, because the horse is taking care of it himself. So movement is essential. Now, what happens when the horse is kept in an environment there is no access to hard surfaces, and when he's not moving much? Things like that. So this is not the worst example, but it's a bit dark, huh? Wow. But here basically you've got a nail, so you remember I called the wall, plus the heels, plus the bars on the other side as well. All that is the nail. It has grown extremely long. Why? Because the horse can't take care of it himself. This horse is not moving much, and it doesn't have access to hard surfaces. So basically, you really rely on the trimmer coming from time to time to cut that nail short, so you can stimulate the two pads, the essential surfaces. So here, that frog is not looking too bad yet, but wow, it could be way bigger than that, way more stimulated. And here, that's after cleaning the hoof, you see a sole that is full of dead material. That hoof stinks. You can probably smell it from here. That thing stinks because it can't clean itself, it's way too long. And it can't develop itself because once you add that much material on top of the structures, the pads here that are underneath for bone, well, what you do is you basically lift the two pads off the ground. You turn a mammal into a reptile. The horse is a mammal. He's supposed to be walking on some sort of pads and maintain a short nail. Okay. Other example, extreme example. What do you think about this back of the foot there? And how are we gonna get to develop and improve and get a horse comfortable on his foot if this is what's happening? So here's an extreme example, and all that stinks. You can imagine. I asked the customer when I took the picture, when I saw that the first time, I was like, well, the guy covered it, he nailed that piece of shoe on it. Did he tell you anything about trying to clean that thing? She said no. He didn't mention anything. So it's like, okay, so how are we going to ever get this part here to be well developed and to be the pillow that we want on the back of the foot for the horse to be sound? This is my assistant. So I'm going to start with something super, super cheesy, something I don't want to use it, but you see it everywhere. No hoof, no horse. Every professional is going to bring you that one. Yeah, cool. I would really like to add to this. No frog, no hoof, no horse. And you remember the frog is the indication of the development of the back of the foot. So that means no digital cushion, no frog, no hoof, no horse. How do we get to a well-developed digital cushion? Movement. So let's make it as simple as we can here. Forget about all that. No movement, no horse. And that's true in the wild, and that's true in the domestic world. It's no different. If a horse doesn't move, we can patch him up for a while. We can do things to try to help the horse in the domestic world with the best care possible. But the truth is, if your horse doesn't move, you don't have a horse. Problems of movement are solved by movement. So that's sometimes a tough thing to hear. But very often you need the horse to move more so he can stimulate the back of his foot, become healthy again, and then you start a beneficial cycle. If we start confining horses, or if we start basically limiting their movement, the problem is we're starting a vicious circle. They're going to move less, they're going to develop less, and then they're going to move even less, and on we go. I love this guy. Let's pretend this guy is like a marathon champion or professional athlete. So I'm going to ask you, how did he get there? Work. Okay. Moving. Yeah, good one. I'm going to ask you still, do you think he takes good care of his nails? Yeah. So I think if he had like a rotten, disgusting nail full of infection, you'll probably not be able to win the victory on that day. So that's an essential condition, to take good care of your nails, especially for his feet. Very important, but that's not what makes him the champion. I bet that this guy's probably not laying on the couch watching TV and eating Cheerios, so he probably has an awareness for his sleep, for his diet, but what gets him to be a champion and run 42 kilometers and finish first is that he's been moving to get there. Same thing with horses, no different. You can't basically think that nail clipping is going to make your horse a champion. It's the movement that's going to get him there. Same idea.